Hello, everyone. Welcome to Open Up, our live talk show. My name is Dipesh, and at Voice of Man 360, I'm the social media coordinator. Voice of Man 360 is a nonprofit founded in 2020 and is based in Toronto, Canada. Now, it was based out of seeing a tremendous need and stepping up to provide services to help support and overcome challenges in men's and boys' life. We are part of it, and International Men's Day has been serving boys and men for over 21 years, and so far in 90 countries around the world. International Men's Day follows six pillars, which are overall, the well-being of men and boys, and we are here to support them and be following the same footsteps. Now, one might say, why open up? Because in today's society, as men, we don't open up our hearts, and we are not willing to share our matters with anyone. When we keep these challenges, like these emotional challenges and these feelings within ourselves for a long time, at some point they do explode and they do affect our health in many ways. Things like various kind of diseases, addiction, substance abuse that we see in today's society. This is why we want to create an open space and allow an individual to share their life journey through our platform. We aim to create awareness about the life challenges and struggles and ups and downs that our boys and men go through in their lives. There are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups in sharing our life journey. All walks of life can participate, so everyone is welcome. You don't have to be necessarily a man or a boy to attend the show. The goal here is to make a positive impact on someone's life through this program. And OpenIP is on Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And we bring in an individual for each show to let them share their life experiences with you. And you've already seen the disclaimer on the show. Now, today, our guest speaker is Jacqueline Ferguson, divine feminine mystic, author, and a business owner. Jacqueline is devoted to raising the vibration of humanity through unity and consciousness. By living fully in the frequency of unconditional love for all humanity and all of Gaia, um, she knows we do have the power within ourselves to heal suffering for and our world. Um, the book Seven Guardians: Embrace Your Fully Human and Fully Divine Self. Welcome to Open Up, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much for being here. I just want to start by saying, if you just want to introduce a little bit about yourself, and what were some of the turning points for you that led you to being an author, and yeah, we can go from there.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here. Um, yeah, I think throughout my entire life, I was constantly looking for my place in the world. We grew up in a very devout Catholic home, and church to me just didn't seem like a safe haven. It seemed very exclusive. So, there was no women priests. There was no women just didn't seem to have a place in the world. And then in 2017, our 16-year-old daughter had a complete psychosis, and I discovered that she had been being trafficked in the sex slave industry. And I pretty much had a bit of a breakdown. But what that did for me was it opened me up to really search for where had we gone wrong as humans, that this was even something that was happening in our country. When you look at the statistics, 96% of trafficked girls in Canada are all between the ages of 13 and 17, and they are all Canadian girls. They're not, we have this image that we import, or that there's, all the trafficking, labor trafficking, sex trafficking, whatever way you look at it, are all people from third world countries. And I learned that that's just not the case. It's actually our Canadian girls that it's happening to.
Wow.
Sorry, yeah.
No, no, I was just like shocked at that statistic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, go on. Yeah.
And the unfortunate part is, 50% of that are Indigenous girls. So I've really become an advocate. I work with a lot of groups now: Men Ending Trafficking, Rising Angels, Safe Hope Home. I do a lot of speaking engagements for them as a parent. What were the red flags? So, trying to raise the awareness within Canada that this is happening. But what it did for me is I started to do a lot. I took a few months off work to take care of her, to get her into programs that would help her. And I got into a lot of meditation. I started studying the goddesses a lot more. They started to come to me in my visions. And then I discovered the Gospel of Mary that had been buried deep in the deserts of Egypt. They were discovered in 1896. And for me, that was just a wow. The biggest disciple, the most important disciple to Jesus was Mary Magdalene. And patriarchy shut down her voice and silenced her for over 2,000 years. Pope Gregory, in 591, in his homily, said that she was a prostitute. So that's kind of where the book came from. And then I found the Gospel of Beloved Companion, which is the complete Gospel of Mary. And that's sort of what the book is based on, is it's this 7 guardians of our ego. So how do we overcome those and choose in all situations love over fear, and always return to love? So no matter what happens in our lives, we cultivate a strength within ourselves that we always choose love.
Wow, that is so powerful, and I think we need that so much in our society today. And from my rough knowledge of Mary, I think she was like, yeah, like one of the she supported Jesus, like when he was on the cross and he almost died, right? And then she was there amongst one of the biggest supporters for him. And yeah, no, it's you're right about the patriarchy, right? Like if you look at our society today, it is male dominated, but at the same time it does affect men as well, right, with the suicide rates,
Absolutely.
right? But when you mentioned like the statistics for human trafficking, yeah, like that was like a big shock for me. Um and yeah, what's crazy is like it's happening right under our nose, right?
In
So
our backyards.
right in our backyard, right? And then yeah, it's just and yeah, and it's so wonderful what you're doing, with raising the human consciousness, the vibration of humanity. A lot of people think that this is like not scientific, or this is not like, you can't, they don't teach you this in schools, but like
Mhm.
this is real education, like.
Yeah, and I think that when we talk about patriarchy or male dominated, I think that there's a little bit of a miscommunication there, because it's not about being male or female. We
Mhm,
all have the energies within ourselves of masculine and feminine. We have, for the past few thousand years, been more masculine oriented. And
mhm,
that's affected boys and men tremendously because they don't know how to share their emotions. They don't know how to speak up because
mhm.
I know even for myself growing up, my dad's famous line was, "Don't cry or I'll give you something to cry about."
Wow.
So that was, we didn't learn how to nurture, to have compassion, whether we were male or female. We all sort of, in order to survive in this world, we had to bring out our masculine energies, which are if in toxic ways.
Mhm.
They're demanding and they're push and strive and do, and there was never any time for our feminine energy to say just be and allow and rest for a little bit.
Yeah, because as human beings, we both have a masculine and feminine side to us, right? You
Hmm.
can't just like narrow it down. Okay, you're a man, so you're supposed to be this like very narrow, hard, person. And you're right. Like the society we live in today, it only promotes the okay, you have to be this hyper competitive, this, be on top of everyone, trample everyone else, be number one, as opposed to the feminine qualities, right? Which are like just because it's feminine doesn't mean it's weak. Actually, I think women are actually stronger, because you go through the whole childbirth process, and then there's this notion that women are weak, right? But if you look at science, for every 110 boys, like 10 of them end up dying in childbirth, whereas with women they have stronger immune systems, more women, right? So there's this notion, right? um Going back to a little bit about you, what would you say that in your childhood, like either when you were 5, 10, or 15 years old, that influenced your path? that you're on now, do you recall any like childhood events happening? I think you mentioned growing up in church,
Oh
so.
yeah. Well, at 14, I actually became the first female altar server at our school or at our
Oh,
church. When I look back at that, that had nothing to do with faith. That was just trying to prove that a girl could do it. And that sort of set the stage for, I think, who I was becoming. At 15, I used to fight with my managers at McDonald's because girls were only allowed to be cashiers. We weren't allowed to cook or do fries or anything like that. So I would stay and do triple shifts just because I'd wait for a boy to call in sick and I'd cook, get to do hotcakes in the morning. And then at 16, I worked at Foodland and I used to threaten to get a union because girls weren't allowed to be stock boys. We were only allowed to be cashiers or deli counter. So I think, those kind of things for me, when I look back, there was that rebel stirring within me all the time that when they would say only boys could do certain jobs. And Depeche, I don't know if you recall, in 1986, the government came out with the Employment Equity Act. And that was really to encourage employers to hire more minorities within the workforce. But what I know Foodland did, and I think McDonald's did the same thing, was they would just put girls into traditionally boy roles to avoid having to hire minorities.
wow. Yeah, no, I wasn't aware of that. And good for you for, like standing up for yourself and for your beliefs, because I think we need more of that. I think you're definitely a good role model for, a lot of the younger women nowadays. Because if you look at even like I'm not sure about like the women's space, but like in like the male space, like you don't really see too many good positive male role models. And I think we need more of what you're doing in our today's world. And I think only through like going through hard times that kind of like makes you aware, right? Because a lot of times people, today in our generation are brought up in a bubble, so they don't really see what's going on in the world. But yeah, no, good for you for standing up for yourself that young, and that takes a lot of courage
And
to do
I
that.
think that throughout the life, when you talk about suffering and pain, I think that we can't know joy without grief. We can't. So, we all are prone to that. It's all going to happen to all of us. We're going to be betrayed by people. We're going to lose loved ones. Um, and I think that when we look at each other in our true essence and really say, you know what, I feel your pain. I understand because I've been there. That allows somebody to open up to you when you share your pain, because we all have it. It's part of being human.
Yeah, and I think as men, one of the things that sorry, think you can hear my dog here. He's going crazy. But I think as men, one of the biggest things that is, society tells us is like, oh, you shouldn't be vulnerable. You shouldn't have all these qualities that make you human, right? Because if you think about it, being caring, soft, gentle. These are not just, feminine qualities. I would call them human qualities, right? And being a balanced human being is able to shift from one to the other as when the situation arises, you know.
I'm
Jacqueline,
going to tell you an
yeah,
interesting story that I was thinking about. I have two sons and a daughter, but my middle son is, yeah, I think he's just under 6'5". He's a beast. But that has been a detriment to him because he's also a highly sensitive person. He's also an empath. He's a very, very kind and caring young man. When he started playing lacrosse and hockey, the expectation was always that he would go out and be a big hitter. He didn't like to hit. It wasn't his strength. It wasn't what he wanted to do. And so a lot of coaches would really degrade him in some ways and shame him for not wanting to be that big beast on the ice or on the floor in lacrosse. And I recall a story when he first started playing lacrosse and a young boy tried to hit him and he went flying. And the coach is screaming at my son to throw the ball and he's in tears and he's saying to the coach, but he's hurt. um, and that just wasn't acceptable. No, throw the damn ball. Who cares if he's hurt? And that was kind of how they got trained in sports was, go out there and hurt and hit and be this big beast out there. But it just wasn't his personality. And so, he would be in tears often after games because he would say, I don't want to hit people. I just want to play hockey. I just want to skate and shoot the puck.
yeah, and I mean, I think that trait, because I can relate to that as well. I think that trait shows a high level of emotional intelligence, being sensitive and empathic, right? Because that's something that's lacking in our society. And I think what happens is, as kids are brought up in that kind of toxic, kind of mold, right? Oh yeah, you're this big beast guy, and you're supposed to go out and, like, beat
Mhm.
everyone up. That kind of, like, that's definitely damaging to, like, the male psyche, right? Especially like
Absolutely.
sensitivity, right? So no, I hope that your boy, he grows up to be, like, I think he's in the right hands, especially with what you're teaching and what you're writing. I think he's in the right hands, and I hope he goes up to be, like a good, well balanced individual.
Yes.
Jacqueline, thank you so much for sharing that story. Yeah, no, I can relate to that too, right? Because, like, same thing with me. Like, I consider myself like emotionally sensitive and empathetic, right? But people see this like big guy, is like, oh yeah, there's this big bouncer guy, right? But I'm like a teddy bear, and yeah, and going back to one other question, Jacqueline. So, what would you say some of your memories about, like, your father-daughter relationship? Like, do you see any kind of, like, things that kind of shaped you, what you are, like, when you I think you mentioned, like, your father saying that, I'll give you something to cry about, kind of thing, right? Yeah, could you share some of those things?
Yeah, it was, when I first saw that question, I kind of thought, I don't want to say bad things about my dad, but he was a very, um, they had 4 kids under the age of 5 by the time they were 24. I think it was way overwhelming for them to deal with, and I was always pegged as daddy's little girl. But the hard part for that was that my dad really wasn't around a lot. Um, he was an alcoholic. So when he was around, we walked on eggshells because you didn't want to upset him. You didn't want to upset the peace in the home. Um, some days he could be fantastic and a lot of fun, but that switch could turn on immediately, and he'd become very volatile and very angry. What I learned as I grew up is that he really never loved himself. And I think around 30, I had a little bit of a breakdown, and I ended up finding myself in an Al Anon meeting. And Al Anon pretty much saved our relationship, mine and my father's, because I started to see him for who he was, for not for his disease. And we grew a lot closer as I got older. I was able, in his last year of life, he got very sick, and we were able to have those spiritual conversations where we would speak about where we go after this life, and what regrets he had in this lifetime. And interesting, his family came to Canada, I think he was 12, and he was bullied throughout high school because he had a very strong Scottish accent, and so the kids couldn't understand him and they would bully him. And then he had an opportunity to try out for a team in Scotland for soccer. His father wouldn't let him go because he didn't have good grades in high school, so he just dropped out. um, and so I think that just led him down a path of not liking himself, really. And when you don't love yourself, it's very difficult to truly love other people. And he spent a lifetime battling that, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, definitely, I agree with that. And I think a lot of our older generation, like a lot of our fathers, they go through, they come from that generation, right? Like, repressing your
Mhm.
emotions, not talking about emotions and feelings, and, like, the trend I see from talking to other people and working with other nonprofits is, like, a lot of the men of that generation, they basically, either become like workaholics, or like substance issues, just because they don't know how to cope. And same thing with me, I've become more empathetic towards their plight because they're dealing with trauma, right? So that's
Mhm.
also kind of a trauma, right? And that's how they don't know any better, right? So I'm glad
Mhm.
we have someone like you that's doing this kind of work to raise awareness, on these issues. And we definitely need more of that in today's society. And Jacqueline, how would you
One of the
say?
things I
Yeah,
always say is addiction is not the disease.
yeah,
Addiction is the solution. So, when you meet someone, we tend to judge people for their addictions, or for those we don't know. We do not know, like you said, the trauma. We have no clue what they've walked through, what they've been through.
yeah.
And I think the clearest thing that we can try and do is help them to learn to love themselves.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing about love is one of those things. I'm a little bit spiritual, right? So a lot of the spiritual books like Buddhism and stuff, they say that love is one of those things. The more you give, the more you get. But if
Mhm,
you keep it, even that, then it's like one of those things. If you keep it to yourself, even that goes away. You know what I mean? And I think
mhm.
there's even a saying in the Bible, right? The more um, yeah, like I don't remember the actual verse, but it does say like the more you give of something, the more you get of it, and if you
Mhm.
don't give it out, even that shall be taken away, right? So like even in our scriptures, there's knowledge and wisdom about these things.
Even in
How
some of
would
the apocryphal gospels, well, I think it's the Gospel
yeah,
of Thomas that says, "What you have within you, if you don't put it outward, then it will eat you alive. That it will, So if we don't share that what's inside of us, that queendom or that kingdom within, then it will destroy us."
yeah, no, definitely, I definitely agree with that. Now, Jacqueline, your book. So how would you say this book can help an individual to become a better person?
Um, well, I think that Christianity's, it was edited and redacted by the Romans. So the Christianity we have today, in the basic sense, is not the whole true story. Um, my book is about explaining how Jesus and Mary Magdalene were actually co-ministers, and that was their whole point, was to share with the world that divine union of our masculine and feminine sides, of equality, of oneness, that there is no separation. We all have different colored skin, we come from different cultures, religions, but truly we all still came from the one. So my book tells that we're brothers and sisters, every one of us, because we all have the same divine parents. Um, and then it's also about it's not about discarding the ego or discarding our humanity. It's about embracing our shadows. It's about embracing the darkness and how to transform that into love. And they provided a blueprint. So I take you through the seven guardians of the ego. So the first one, say it's in order to have love and compassion, we need to overcome judgment and wrath. So when we look at judgment, we judge everything. We judge our bodies, we judge our minds, our thoughts, we judge other people. And as we continue to do that, we stay in a separation consciousness. Whereas if we can try to remember in each moment that we're having a judgment moment or we're feeling angry, that we can try to replace that with higher vibrational frequency of love and compassion, and having compassion for another person for what they're possibly going through, or seeing the essence within them. So I think that my book I also share my very vulnerable stories of things that I have gone through in order for me to embrace the higher um, divine emotions, as opposed to staying stuck in the lower emotions that keep me stuck. Does that help?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I'm definitely looking forward to reading your book. I think it has a lot of valuable information that, I think it definitely has a lot of wisdom in it. And yeah, like coming back to the masculine and feminine, it's not like just because you're a man, you're supposed to be this macho tough guy. You're supposed to be a well-balanced individual. And same thing with women, right? It's like just because you're a woman doesn't mean you can't have masculine qualities. Actually, I
Mhm,
work for a large financial institution, and I'm involved in initiatives that promote women's empowerment in the IT industry. And
mhm,
one of the things that kept coming up is that if a woman is being assertive, she's seen as like, oh, you're bossy or you're this,
mhm.
So I think this book should definitely help a lot of people. And I thank you so much for sharing your story with us. I look forward to connecting again. And I think the work that you're doing and the work Voice of Men 360 is doing is definitely needed in today's society.
Mhm.
To improve mental health of men, to improve healing, right? Because there's definitely like a lot of suffering you see in today's world, right? And we definitely need more positivity and more healing. So yeah, thank you so much. If there's any closing comments, please feel free to share them, and then I'm just gonna close the show.
Yeah, no, I think I'm good. I want to thank you very much for having me on the show. One of the things I will say is that as we open up and become more vulnerable with one another, we actually attract more of the like-minded people into our lives. I'm very blessed. I'm surrounded by a lot of divine masculines, um, and we honor each other. So I thank you for doing the work that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. And that's what I've learned too. It's like once you become vulnerable and want to share of yourself, it kind of allows other to share as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, like with this work I'm doing here and my personal life and professional life, I'm blessed to be surrounded by positive people and experiences, good or bad, because you learn from both experiences. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you so much, for being here. And
Yeah.
just before closing our show, I'm gonna have a few announcements here. We have our every Sunday talk show at 10 a.m. It's open up, and it's about sharing your personal life journey. We also have Billy, our Tamil Life talk show on Sunday at 8 a.m. EST. We have our monthly webinar first Saturday of every month at 10 a.m. EST, Eastern Standard Time. We bring in expertise and organizations and discuss a particular topic every show. The next one is on Sunday at May 7th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. And Men of the North will be joining and discussing what's happening in the indigenous communities and their services and programs. So, this is a very important topic. Please feel free to join. We also have our monthly special shows, The Unspoken Tears, second Saturday of every month from 10 to 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The focus is domestic violence against men, bullying, male sexual abuse, trauma, porn addictions, and human trafficking. I believe the next one will be on Saturday, May 14th at 10 a.m. Eastern. Our special guest will be analyzing divorce and recovery and sharing some tools to help our men. We also have Author Circle. We want to bring individuals who have been contributing to well-being of men and boys through writing, either writing articles or media, and recognize them and appreciate them. This is third of every Saturday of every month from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Eastern. We also have a podcast. All our shows are available on 6 platforms, including, the Google Store, Google Play, the App Store for iOS. We also have our monthly men's meeting. It's only for men by men every 2 weeks on Tuesdays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. through Zoom, and the next one will be on Tuesday, May the 3rd. Please join through Zoom, and the link is available on our Facebook page group. And lastly, we have pass the talking stick. It's an indigenous peer-to-peer support group on fourth Friday of every month from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. and it is done through Zoom. Now, in closing the show, I would say that there are no limitations with gender, age, nationality, or ethnic groups. All walks of life can participate in any of our shows, and everyone and anyone is welcome. If you want to be a guest on any of our shows or want to be part of our organization, or help us directly or indirectly, please reach out to us. We would love to work with individuals, professionals, expert community organizations, associations, corporations, government officials, and businesses. Our phone number and email address can be found on our website here. And you can also join our Facebook group. You can see our daily activities. Please invite your friends and family as well. And we are also on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Um, we want to reach out to more people and help more people, and please continue to show your support. Thank you so much.